No moan, no yell. Just call for help. See you later. Bye-bye.
Tonight, fresh from UPS and FedEx, the parts to Pat's Norton 500 gaming rig. Watch him build it and get it running by the end of the show. Plus, why Michio Kaku has written a new book about Einstein. And for all you IMers, we will introduce you to some of the killer new plugins. Live from the Tech TV studios in San Francisco, it's the Screensavers. Woo!
Welcome to the Screensavers. I'm Patrick Norton.
And I'm Sarah Lane. Thanks for joining us on the Screensavers. This is the only place where you can get live product demos, interviews, tips and tricks, and of course, computer help.
We love the help.
We love that. Kevin's in D.C., so I'm filling in again today. This is sort of like our Friday.
This is so cool, except that I'm going to
really
take a red eye to D.C. and work for 18 hours tomorrow. So
and I get to sleep and then take the flight, so.
Well, you got like a, what, a 5 a.m.
I don't really know how I got the better end of that deal. Why are you taking a red eye?
I don't know. Tonight we have a great show, so I could have the fine opportunity to host this program with these lovely people. And for you folks at home. The $500 gaming PC is back. This time we mail-ordered everything. We're going to talk about the pitfalls and the joys of mail-ordering all your PC
And there
parts.
are both, pitfalls and joys.
But we do have a $500 gaming PC.
Which is great. I can't wait to see.
We like that.
And I've
got stuff.
I've got plugins that make Trillian the coolest alternative to AIM. It's already the coolest alternative to AIM, but a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of plugins that you can use to make it so much cooler.
Fabulous.
More fabulous. Fantabulous.
Speaking of fantabulous, Joshua Brentano.
I am very fantabulous, thank you, Patrick. I'm checking out this new demo from Nova Logic. Thinking about playing it in the LAN party down the road, so I'm looking for some feedback. I'll show you guys the game a bit later in the show. Look, it's a first-person shooter. Imagine that.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, now Dan has been out for a few days. Dan went down to Coachella. In Indio, California, that big old music festival for the kids.
Oh, yes.
Was it decadent?
It was fantastic. I'm lucky to be alive, actually.
Well, so basically...
Tell us, Fu.
How hot was it?
Oh, my God. It was like nearly 110.
And how much was like $9 for a quart of water?
110.
It was actually fairly reasonable. It was like $2 for water. But like I got a chicken sandwich for $7. Like the food was... absorbent. Oh,
welcome to music festivals.
It's terrible. It was actually my first music festival, but I loved it.
Oh, it was
awesome.
Fu's first music festival. Wow. Anything else you want to tell us, Dan?
Oh, the phone number, my favorite part. Give me a call. It's 888-989-7879. And email us at thescreensavers@techtv.com. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Fu.
That's fun.
Tech news?
It's good to have Dan back. The tech news that caught our eye today. Let's start with the first story. Yesterday, we reported that the new worm to watch out for is the Sasser worm. An early report suggested that it was slow-moving. However, as of today, the estimated number of users infected has, by some accounts, risen to over 1 million PCs, including Windows 2000, XP, and T operating systems, covering a lot of folks. The Windows Update patch should still protect you against the dreaded Sasser, and you could find the link to the Sasser removal tool in today's show notes. I urge you all to go there.
It's a good thing.
We really want to remove this demon.
Relatively benign, but it has been slowing down traffic in a couple of corporate workspaces. You should have your firewall turned on in Windows XP. If you don't have it turned on already, you should be running a firewall between you and the big bad internet if you've got a broadband connection. And yeah, go to the website and learn how to disable it if you've already been infected.
We're here to help. Check the link. Yesterday, we told you about MGM and Comcast's latest move against copyright infringement. Comcast reportedly sent customers a letter informing them of their illegal downloading activity. In addition, the individual supposedly must write a letter which consists of an explanation and an apology. Now, we were a little confused as to what exactly was entailed.
Is this self-incriminating? Is this the right thing to do? Is this a dumb thing to do? Why is Comcast sending out this letter?
Why are we having to apologize?
We asked for a lawyer, and oddly enough,
we got one.
An intellectual property lawyer, Tampa, Florida, to explain what Comcast letters mean. DMCA attorney at Central Law, W.F. Casey Ebsary Jr. Is that right, Casey?
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hi, Casey.
I'm very glad to be on with y'all. Under the DMCA, which is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, those letters are designed to insulate the ISP and the host from liability as a co-infringer. If they make best efforts to have the material removed, then they are not going to be sued as a co-infringer, as they might be if they didn't send that letter. So that letter, as I was reading on some websites that were talking about the materials at issue here, is designed to insulate liability and prevent the ISP from having to police their servers for infringing files.
So, Casey, what you're telling us is that Comcast is just covering their tracks. They just don't want to get in trouble.
Comcast is complying with the provisions of the DMCA. I'm going to post something for y'all on show notes that's going to have the DMCA provisions that apply. I would say somebody who gets a letter like this probably ought to get a lawyer. That movie, the alleged infringing movie, Walking Tall, I noticed is a first-run movie. I'm not aware of it being out in DVD. MGM is hot for cases like this. They are not looking for apologies. They are looking for defendants.
Really? That's a little scary. So basically they're looking for people to make an example of.
Exactly, and there are both criminal and civil penalties. If you think about the screen you see when you watch your DVD, there are criminal penalties for infringement, and I would say they need to get a competent attorney involved because writing a letter of apology ain't going to cut it.
So just out of curiosity, if someone has already written a letter of apology, is that an admission of guilt or confirmation, or is it just something that Comcast is going to keep on file to prove that they've covered their respective tookuses?
Well, I read the letter that was posted from MGM, and that letter doesn't necessarily look for an apology.
Right.
It's looking for a cross-claim. And a cross-claim is saying, hey, I have superior intellectual property rights to MGM. Hey, that's my movie. I can post it.
Right.
So what they're looking for is a response saying, I really own the copyright. So I don't think they're looking for an apology. And in both criminal and civil cases, a letter of apology like that could be viewed as an admission of guilt and dominion and control over the alleged infringing files.
So if you get, as you said before, if you get a letter like that that stipulates you are downloading this particular feature, it's intellectual property of MGM, this is your IP address, this is the application you use, don't send a letter to Comcast saying, I'm sorry and I erased it. Get a lawyer.
Got it. Why don't you bring one of your desert racing trucks down here to Florida and race against one of our outlaw street cars?
That's tempting. That's
Hello.
tempting. I will talk to the lads about whether or not we can make a road trip to Florida. See if we can get Steinberger in on that one for you. We want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us on this one and explain what's going on.
Casey.
Good stuff, Casey.
Who knew lawyers was so much fun? Racing?
Lawyers are always fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not always. That one was.
Thanks again, Casey. We're just getting started. Sarah has some plugins to make your IM experience amazing. And after the break, Kevin caught up with physicist Michio Kaku to talk about his latest book on Einstein's cosmos. Good stuff when Screensavers continues. Welcome back to the Screensavers. We're on the verge of a huge anniversary in the world of theoretical physics. And our favorite theoretical physicist, Dr. Michio Kaku, has just written a new book about Einstein. He joins us now via satellite from New York. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Kaku.
Glad to be on.
So I got a first question for you is, why a new book about Einstein now?
Well, you know, next year is the 100th anniversary of the founding of relativity, and the United Nations calls it the Year of Physics. There are a number of science documentaries about Einstein coming out next year, a number of international conferences, so it's going to be an Einstein renaissance.
So tell me, for people that aren't familiar with all of Einstein's discoveries and theories, what wouldn't be possible in today's tech world without Einstein's theories holding true?
Well, the simplest example would be the GPS system. In fact, the GPS satellites would be off unless you put relativistic corrections. Not to mention all of electronics. Television, electronics, your PC would simply not function without relativity. Not to mention the sun itself. The sun itself would cease to shine if it wasn't for E equals mc squared. So when people say, what has relativity done for me lately, just realize that all life on Earth depends upon Einstein's theory of relativity.
So what more recent Nobel Prizes
are we seeing as a direct result of Einstein's work?
Well, you know, some earlier biographies said that Einstein's theory was finished, it's old-fashioned. We have to realize that Nobel Prizes today are being given for crumbs that are falling off Einstein's table. That's because we have a whole new generation of space satellites, lasers, gravity wave detectors, and they're winning Nobel Prizes for the current generation of physicists. For example, in outer space, we have two dead neutron stars chasing each other, releasing gravity waves. And because of that, the Nobel Prize was awarded to two physicists for calculating the rate at which two neutron stars go into a death spiral because of Einstein's theory.
Yeah, I was going to say, we do have lasers and we have technology, the internet, and all these things. Now, Einstein didn't have, how did he have such incredible foresight without having near the technology that we have today?
Yeah, you know, when he made his theories, he said to himself that maybe some of his ideas would take 100 years to test. And sure enough, 100 years later, we do have the space satellites and we do have the laser beams that can test some of Einstein's theory. But I think the secret of Einstein's success, the reason why he was 100 years ahead of us, was because he had a childlike quality. He asked questions like, what is light? What would it be like to race a light beam? What is space? What is time? When we grow up, we learn not to ask those questions anymore.
Right.
But Einstein had that childlike quality. He never let go until he finally understood the secret of light, the secret of space and time.
So what's the next big breakthrough, given that there is like a theory of everything?
Well, that's what we're chasing after right now. We're looking for places where Einstein's theory begins to fail. Now, at the present time, we have seen no deviations in our experiment from Einstein's theory. However, now that we have black holes that we can see with the Hubble Space Telescope, we want to push the limits to see whether relativity breaks down at the center of a black hole or maybe the instant of creation itself. We can detect radiation for the Big Bang now. We have baby pictures of the Big Bang, and we want to see whether or not Einstein's theory breaks down there. And ultimately, as you pointed out, we need a theory of everything. And that's what Einstein was chasing after for the last 30 years of his life.
So tell me about the theory of everything. What is, for someone that doesn't know, explain that a little bit.
Well, we have four fundamental forces that rule the universe. We have gravity, which is worked out by Einstein's theory. And then we have the quantum forces, the forces of the atom, the two nuclear forces, and also the electromagnetic force. And a theory of everything would be a theory which combines Einstein's theory of gravity with the quantum theory of the atom. And if you could combine these two theories, you would have the sum total of all physical knowledge, perhaps in an equation 1 inch long. Now think about that. E equals mc squared, unleash the power of the sun. That's the secret of the stars, E equals mc squared. We want to find an equation just like that, which would be the secret of the universe itself.
If you were able to find, let's discover the theory of everything, you found the equation, what would that mean to mankind?
Well, in the short term, nothing. We're not going to get better color television. We're not going to get better toasted bread because we found the unified field theory. However, the unified field theory will ultimately answer some of the deepest questions about space and time. For example, what lies on the other side of a black hole? Can time travel take place by going through a wormhole? What happened before the Big Bang? How will the universe eventually die until we escape the death of the universe itself? These are cosmic questions which can only be answered by going beyond Einstein to a theory of everything.
Wow. So Time magazine named Einstein the person of the 20th century. What do you think it would take for a physicist to be the person of the 21st century?
Well, I think a lot of us physicists are asking that question. I'd say that Einstein ranks way up there with Isaac Newton in terms of his contributions to science and humanity. And a lot of us are trying to see whether we could then extend the work of Newton and Einstein to a theory of everything. We want to complete that dream of a grand synthesis that would allow us to, quote, read the mind of God, unquote, to read his thoughts. That's what Einstein wrote in his diaries and memoirs. He had hoped to tap into God's thoughts. And that's what we physicists are trying to aspire to at the present time.
That would be amazing. Thanks so much, Dr. Kaku, for your time.
My pleasure.
That was theoretical physicist Dr. Michio Kaku. Find out more about his book, Einstein's Cosmos, at thescreensavers.com. Now, don't go anywhere. We have a lot more screensavers coming right up after this quick break.
Digital Digs Roadshow is on its way to Texas, and if you love gadgets, you want to be there. Plus, as a bonus, you can also meet Fresh Gears' Chris Leary and Stephanie C. Miller in person. The Roadshow hits the Hewlett Mall in Fort Worth, Texas on May 8th and 9th. The event runs from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturday and noon to 5 on Sunday. So for more info and to learn all about the coast-to-coast stops of the Roadshow, Pat and I are going somewhere, Kevin, Jesse, the whole nine, go to techtv.com/Digital Digs. We're going to Nashville. So if you're in Nashville, give us a holler. We'll be in your hood. Anyway, a few months ago, Patrick ran around to local vendors and bought all the parts for a sub-$500 gaming PC. It really happened. Today, we're revisiting the Norton 500, but this time, he's ordered everything online.
Basically, we put together the parts list, we mail-ordered everything, and our research is, of course, started on PriceWatch.com. But I want to tell you right now, the biggest difference between buying stuff in a store and buying it online is packing material.
Oh, I hate that.
I now have more little tiny fuzzy squeaky things in my cubicle than anyone should ever have. But basically, we went through, we used PriceWatch for our research, right? We started out, and we looked through our motherboard of choice, our CPU of choice, and here's the deal. You go to PriceWatch.com, you click on a page, and you start scrolling down. This is not real complicated stuff. What you guys always ask us about is, how's this vendor? How's that vendor? Were they any good? So what we did, we went through, we picked the best prices on the best vendors, and we got a pretty goodly sample of vendors out there. We used Newegg.com, DumpingGoods.com, one of my new favorite web names ever, TigerDirect.com, Directron.com, GoGoCity.com, 3B Tech through the Yahoo store. And, well, you know, the thing is, though, some things worked better than others. We got pretty close. A couple things we realized. We gave an intern a credit card, and we ran them and set them loose. The two things we found out is you need to read very, very carefully on what you're ordering. Example, we ordered a Power Max, what we thought was a Power Max power supply and a case, and it turns out it was actually the Power Max power supply only. So we're going to have to reorder our case. We borrowed a case for this. The other thing we did, something you should be very careful when you're ordering a processor, is to make sure that you order a heatsink separately or order a boxed heatsink or a boxed processor that comes along with the heatsink. And one reason you might want to also do that is to make sure that you actually have a warranty covering your processor. Because there's something a little frightening, especially for me, having destroyed a few AMD processors, when you get something like this in the mail.
No returns accepted on processors.
Exactly. So be really careful about that.
That's not very helpful.
So one of the problems you run into is, I think it was at saveateagle.com.
Yeah, Eagle Computer.
Eagle Computer, which is saveateagle.com. And we ordered some memory online. We punched it in. We got the credit card number. We paid for our shipping. And alrighty then. And then we found out that they didn't actually have it in stock. We got an oops and an apology after we called them up to find out where it was, which is not how I want to find out. And that's one of the things you have to do, is you have to double check to make sure it's in stock and to make sure that it's going to ship on time. And the other thing is the cost of shipping.
Right.
Now, we're going to talk about that more later on. And we're also going to talk about some things like finding out, our Athlon 2600 330, because we actually got a better processor than we originally spec'd for this PC, because some of the prices went down. Actually has a rebate and how you cash in that rebate. Anyhow, we mail ordered the parts. We went to PriceWatch. We chose the best price we could get, basically the combination of the best price between whether or not we got free shipping or paid for shipping. And we're going to make the whole thing run. We're going to talk about all the parts in the next segment.
I'm excited. Now, when did this whole process start? When was the start date of the Norton 500?
Well, we did the segment a couple months ago, and then like last week, somebody went, here's a credit card, buy the stuff.
Let's do it online.
And away we went.
All right.
In the meantime.
This is sort of a week in the making. I'm excited. We're going to check in later to find out how it's going. For now, let's check in with Boo for a quick tip.
Thank you very much. Hey, if you want to convert any audio file into just about anything you want, or how about sticking it to the man using a free alternative to Office? Now, all this is possible if you go to thescreensavers.com/show notes and read Patrick Norton's article on his top freeware roundup. There you'll find some classic and not so classic Norton suggestions. But don't go anywhere. Patrick starts the construction of the Norton 500 PC. But after the break, Sarah's showing off the best instant messaging setup yet. So download of the day. All that when the Screensavers come back.
I'm Sarah Lane.
And she's doing the running dance. I'm Patrick Norton. Coming up in this half hour, building the Norton $500 gaming PC, see how it all comes together.
Yeah.
And Leo joins us with a tip for using AOL with Outlook. AOL on the screensaver, something I thought I'd never see.
And Leo.
And Leo. This is scary, folks. Beware.
It's a strange time.
Yes.
Strange days are upon us. Last week I showed you Aim Mutation, which of course is the free aim plugin that enhances your aim 1,000-fold. It's good times. But for those of us who want to break away from aim altogether, and there are many, Trillian is definitely the way to go. We've shown Trillian in the past. It's got a lot of features, tab browsing, the whole nine, and it works with MSN, Yahoo, ICQ, AIM, so that's really good. But today I'm going to go even farther and show you how Trillian plugins can make this client good for a lot more than chatting.
Cool.
Yeah, so I've got it open, and it looks pretty normal. Here's Trillian Pro. Let's say I want to open up a conversation with Sarah. It looks about right. Sarah's actually me, so she's going to talk right back to me when I say hello. And I've sort of set it up so that I've got active windows that are in color. It's a nice blue. My inactives are black and white. That's sort of fun. That's all in my preferences. But I also have a bunch of other new tabs. For example, I've got a plugin called Do Me. And it really isn't as icky as it sounds. It's just a task manager. So, for example, I've got a task in there that says push-up set. And if I click on it, it's like, I want to do 20 push-ups every 3 hours because I think it'll help.
Is that the grunting noise that comes from your cubicle?
Yes, it is. Okay. Yes, it is. And it, gives me muscles and helps. I don't really know. I don't actually do 20 push-ups every 3 hours. It's a total lie. But if I wanted to, that's how I would remind myself to do it. So I can set an alarm. I can make sure a pop-up notification can come up. It can do all sorts of other things. I can also configure mail accounts. I have popmail, sarahlane.com. That's how I check it at work. It's telling me right now you've got 302 unread messages. Oh, boy. And, of course, if I click on it, it will open up. Outlook Express is what I have designated my email client to open it up. My weather is another really good plugin. You know what? Before I go any farther, let me just make the designation that this is Trillian Pro. I should have said this at the beginning. We've got Trillian Basic and Trillian Pro. Trillian Basic is free, and it's a great client, but Trillian Pro has so much more. None of these plugins will work with Trillian Basic. You have to have Trillian Pro. It's $25. But there are a lot of good reasons because the plugins are endless. I mean, we're talking like 50. You could go 75 plugins if you wanted to. Even with 3, you've got a lot going on. If we move on now, under my weather, I've got San Francisco weather and I've got Sebastopol, my hometown. I want to make sure that I know what's going on in both places. My parents are up there. I'm down here. It's doing a little bit better. It's 79 degrees and fair in Sebastopol, partly cloudy, and 64 here in San Francisco. Obviously, if you're from the Midwest or out of the country, whatever, it's very nice to have weather. And, not just weather, but
I'm sure they
sunrise,
have weather there, too.
sunset. They do have weather in Europe, I've heard. Yes. And if you move on now, also if you also look at my buddy list, I know a lot of people at home are trying to I am all these people, and they haven't been able to because it's not really the name. They're not really their handles, which is nice. If you just mouse over Sarah here, it says, my name is Momo Lane. I've got a lot of friends that are like Johnny123X993, and I just can't always remember who Johnny XX99 is. So I can rename everybody. And just before we go, really quickly, one of the really nice things I like about Trillian Pro is the ability to bring some of this stuff over to the side. I can almost, as little individual cells, bring out my components. So let's say I wanted to I don't really want to see Trillian Pro, but I want my weather, and I want to be able to talk to Sarah. And so no matter what I do here, I'm opening stuff, I can say, oh, okay, let's talk to Sarah, and I can, check my weather. That's fun.
That's awesome.
I really like that. So you're not confined to your buddy list. You're not confined to the IM as you've known it. You can get Trillian Basic or Trillian Pro plus all the plugins, and there are way more than I had time to show you today in my Download of the Day article at thescreensavers.com.
Good stuff.
It is good.
Doug joins us on the phone from Orlando, Florida. Hey,
Doug.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. And yourself?
Good, Doug. How are you?
Doing good. I've got a DirecTV Tivo, and I want to change the drive and put in a bigger hard drive. And does that use just a standard drive that you use in a computer, or is it kind of special for a Tivo?
Well, in theory, you can slap just about any drive in there. I mean, it's an ATA interface. It should connect. But there are some issues. Actually, Joshua Brentano was exploring putting a hard drive in his replay system.
I upgraded the hard drive in my replay TV in about 17 minutes, so it's really easy to do. But the Mac Store is probably the OEM manufacturer for the drive you have in the Tivo right now. It's probably a Mac Store, same with Replay. And they have a line of drives called QuickView drives.
Yeah.
And those drives are specialized for streaming audio and video. They have a specialized cache and a specialized seek profiles to handle video. So that's how I would recommend doing it, because it's the OEM replacement. Weaknees.com, I think, is about the only manufacturer where you can get those. And you can get it either in the kit for your Tivo or just the drive, the hard drive itself, if you want to do it all yourself. They have all the instructions there.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Doug?
Yeah, I just didn't know if you could use a regular hard drive or you needed something a little bit special.
You probably could get away with 5,400 RPM hard drive. Part of what Joshua was explaining is they've optimized the cache for basically, it's a small amount of data they stream constantly for hours on end. And the other thing they do is they try to keep the heat generated by the hard drive to a minimum. Because if you have, put a 7,200 or a 10,000 RPM hard drive in there, you're not going to get any better performance on your Tivo, and you're going to create a lot of additional heat inside the case, which is a bad thing.
But there are a couple backup drives if you look at Weak Knees. For $80 and $70, Series 1 DirectTV hard drive,
right.
40 gig, 30 gig, so you've got some options.
But for like 120 gig, you're probably going to end up using a standard desktop hard drive. Go for 5,400 RPM hard drive, should be okay. And I'll tell you what, this would be a good time actually to put some links together, and so we can find some recommendations online for you, Doug. Okay?
Thanks
Are you claiming that you'll put some links together?
I'm claiming it. I actually do put links together when I talk about them.
Are you insinuating that I do not?
No.
We're going to box. No, we're not. Okay, let's get out of this. All right. I've been waiting all show to see the great new LAN party game Brentano's been talking about. He talks of this incessantly. What is so great about it, Joshua?
120 and 250 player games.
Ooh.
Yes, the game is Novologic's Joint Operations Typhoon Rising. I'm in a 120 player game right now. There's about 90 people in it. They've been testing games that are pushing the 250 player mark. The map in the demo seems huge. The graphics are great, and it's packed with a bunch of weapons and vehicles, as are all first-person shooters. So go download it right now at joinopsthegame.com. Check it out, and email me with your thoughts at joshua@techtv.com. And if we get enough people who say they want to play it, we'll put it in the LAN party down the road. But stay where you are. Leo is ahead with with a tip on AOL email. But next, $500 worth of Patrick's parts. Woo!
Yeah.
For his gaming PC, of course, when the screensavers continues.
Let's check in with the fine folks over at Fresh Gear to see what's coming up tonight. Stephanie Seemiller joins us.
Hi, Stephanie.
I'm assuming you're talking to me, but I cannot hear you.
Okay.
So I'm just going to do my thing.
Just do it.
I can hear you.
Can you hear us now?
Hello?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Sarah,
Hear me now?
I'm wondering, was that your real screen name you just gave out to the world?
Yeah, but I made the mistake of everyone in the world already IM'd me because I already made that mistake last week, so now it's only people on my buddy list. Sorry, world.
Girl, I'm going to IM you.
Okay, you can be my buddy.
Hi.
Woo!
So I know that all of you guys already have digital cameras, right?
Yeah.
What are they, 4, 5, maybe 6 megapixels?
Nope.
More like 4.
2. 3.
All right, well, that was considered high-end, last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, tonight on Fresh Gear, we're checking out the latest 8-megapixel cameras. I know, it borderline's just ridiculous. Well, we've got 3 of them from the top camera makers. We've been testing them out, and we'll tell you if they live up to the hype. That's coming up tonight, right after Tech Live at 8:30 Eastern.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Momo Lane, I'm Anya.
I am me. I want to hear it all the dirt. 8 megapixel.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's not, 8 megapixel isn't like 4 times as good as 2 megapixels.
Right.
It's only like twice as good as 2 megapixels.
You get like diminishing returns as the megapixels.
But you can get amazingly high prices. They're going to tell you all about that on Fresh Gear, which is right after Tech Live, which is right after this show.
That's right.
So you're on a budget, you don't have time to visit your local computer store, or maybe there is no local computer store near you, but you want a decent gaming rig. As we showed you earlier, you can buy all the computer parts you need online. We put together a system, we spec'd it out for you. It comes in under $500. Now, admittedly, we do this, we assume this is going to be an upgrade to an existing system, so
Sure.
we don't have a monitor in there, and we don't have a copy of the operating system.
Okay.
We assume you're going to recycle your operating system and plug this in your existing monitor. We got a pretty good set of parts in here. We got a CPU, Well, duh, of course we have a CPU, but it's an Athlon XP 2600, 333 megahertz front side bus, $65.99 after the $20 rebate.
Cha-ching.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous how much power you can get for no money these days.
Yeah.
Motherboard went with 8-bit NF7 N-Force 2, basically socket A, ATX. Got built on audio on the motherboard. We've got a SPDIF out. We've got LAN built in. Everything you need. 8X AGP support, $69. I don't know if you can see that. You like the feet on the case, don't you? We'll get this one to you next. Actually, I'll turn so you can see it. King Max provided the RAM for us. 512 megabytes, PC 2700, DDR 333. $93. Now, originally we ordered a generic version for about $79.50, but as we told you earlier, it wasn't in stock, so we had to go with a second supply on that. ATI Radeon 9600 Pro for the graphics, which is more than enough if you're playing at 10x7 for your gaming. And the hard drive's a little odd. Normally we go with like a Western Digital or a Seagate or a Mac Store, but we're going to take a flyer on this one and try the Magnetic Data Technology. I believe it's a refurbished drive, 100 gigabytes, 7200 RPM, $64. So we just got to know if it works, right?
Yeah, because if it does,
it's amazing. Basically to keep it cheap, we went with a simple CD. To keep it cheap, we went with a simple CD-ROM drive. In case you guys don't know what a CD-ROM drive looks like, it looks like that. $17 for 52X. So basically, all we're using the CD-ROM drive in this is maybe ripping some tunes, but mostly loading games. And, for another $20, you can get a CDR drive. For, another $65, you can get a DVD burner now. Now, the case is not exactly what you would be expecting. Normally, you'd get a cheap, flimsy case that was about to fall apart. In this case, the case didn't arrive because it came separately from a power supply, but we'd be speccing out a PowerMax 400-watt power supply in a steel case. It'd be flimsy, but it would be steel, and it would be $52 for the 400-watt power supply. This is not a $50 PC case. This is like a $125 PC case. Got everything installed. We're going to plug in the power. We're going to restart it so we can get Windows XP to boot. Keep watching if you want to see it running later on.
I want to see it running.
You do?
I'm going to keep watching.
Okay.
That's right. Now, until then, let's check in with Leo for a quick AOL email tip. Leo?
AOL users, rejoice! The biggest problem with America Online for years has been its crappy email program. You've been stuck with it. It's the only way you can get AOL mail. Well, they finally, April 5th, introduced IMAP, so you can now get your AOL mail with Outlook, Outlook Express, Eudora, any IMAP-supported program. Check out this article by an AOL user. I highly recommend it. I put a link in the website at thescreensavers.com. It explains what IMAP is and how to set it up, or you can go to AOL keyword Open Mail Access, and you can literally, here I am in Outlook Express, set up an AOL account using the IMAP servers. They do use slightly different ports, so you're going to want to make sure you get the port addresses correct. And both cases, they use secure connections to protect you. IMAP is a great technology. It allows the mail to be stored on a remote server, but you can do everything you can do with normal pop mail, including filter it. You can move it around in folders. You can keep track of it. It's a big improvement. AOL goes IMAP. Check it out. Keyword is Open Mail Access on AOL. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Leo. Thanks.
Buy me a Coke.
Coming up after the break, will the Norton 500 run? You're going to find out after these messages. Tomorrow's show, director Kevin Smith, a.k.a. Silent Bob, talks about directing comic book movies and see Linux like you have never seen it before in 3D. Plus, learn how to build an internet toaster and other off-the-wall hardware hacking projects for geeks. That's all on tomorrow's show.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
We showed you how and where to get the parts for a sub-$500 gaming PC. And we're actually, if I can find the little tiny clip to power it up, we'll see it in full operational mode.
I want to see it.
Should we do a question? Do we have time to do a live question first before we do that?
Sure.
Oh, we don't have the
caller
yet.
yet.
I thought we did. Anyhow, let's go over the parts and prices one more time.
That's trick.
We did an Athlon XP 2600 Plus. Well, why don't you read these off, and I'll find the little switch so I can power it up.
Athlon XP 2600 33 AMD for $65.99. 8-bit NF7 N-Force 2 socket. I don't want to do this. ATX with audio.
You want to find the little tiny power switch inside of this?
Darn it! This isn't my 14-pound trick, you know that?
Because we got audio LAN and AGP 8X built on it, $69.99. King Max is the provider of the 512 megabytes of PC 2700 DDR RAM, $93 for that. Radeon 9600 Pro for the graphics, a fine card, especially if you're not, using a 17, 19-inch monitor, not going above 10x7 for your gaming. Took a flyer on the hard drive magnetic data technology at 100 gigabytes, 7,200 RPM hard drive, $64. We just had to know how good a $64 100 gigabyte drive was. LG provided the CD-ROM drive, spinning up at 52X. Power Max for the case and the power supply, and we're going to have to reorder that one in because we ordered just the power supply by accident. The total price with the shipping, $490.98. Oh, you know what? I take that back. That's without shipping and tax. We had to get these parts in-house for today's show. We used 2-day air shipping, and because of the Eagle computer mess, we had to get next-day shipping on the memory, so that bumped up our total a bit. So if you got the whole lack of a patience thing, $627.73. That's $137 in shipping if you want it fast. If you have the luxury of time, though, lots of vendors, including many of the ones we use, offer free shipping, especially if it's UPS ground. Some vendors don't charge sales tax. However, as we've learned here recently in California, and some people I know in New Jersey, they're starting to put out-of-state purchases and asking you to claim them on your personal tax forms for your state. Anyhow, if you have time, your order, including shipping, including the original generic memory I recommended, well, would have totaled $504.19. Not bad for pretty good graphics and an outstanding processor. Now, if you want to go through all the parts in the PC, look for the build at $500 gaming PC link at thescreensavers.com.
See, it just didn't seem right for me to read all of that.
Well, you know.
It's your Norton 500 gaming PC.
I just wanted you to read the parts list, and I was going to jump back into the fun part.
I'm sorry.
Anyhow, we're going to talk to Steve from English, Indiana. How you doing, Steve?
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
What up?
How can
I was just wondering, I was wanting to upgrade my operating system. I was wondering whether to go to the XP Home or XP Pro.
What kind of stuff are you doing?
Burning some DVDs, working with some photos.
Do you need a fully encrypted hard drive for portable purposes?
No.
Plan on using dual processors or a dual processor motherboard?
No.
There's the top 2 reasons I can think of for using Windows XP Pro.
You might be fine with Home.
As a matter of fact, I'd say you'll save money and you'll get all the operating system you need out of XP Home, Steve.
Okay.
Are there any other things you're worried about for the operating system?
About the backup.
The backups.
Yeah.
What kind? When you mean you're
like
moving?
System backup if I had a hard drive failure or something.
What are you using now to back up, Steve?
Just backing up my data, basically.
Right. Are you backing up are you backing it up to an external hard drive or a CDR or a DVD?
CDRs.
CDRs. Okay. Basically, do you want to be able to back up the whole Windows XP installation?
No, just like the system recovery or what.
Are you wondering if system recovery is going to save your system if something goes wrong?
Well, if it helps.
Well, I've tried to use system recovery in Windows XP a bunch of times. I've actually had success with it once. It requires you to manually go into what amounts to remember DOS prompts? Remember that whole command line scene? Typing stuff in, pain, suffering, agony, confusion, on top of the fact that you're trying to save your fiance's 230-page paper she needs to graduate from graduate school.
Okay, this is getting personal.
Yeah, it's getting personal. But what I'm saying is you're much better off backing up your data, which it sounds like you're already doing, Steve, than trusting the system recovery. What that'll do is it may restore some of the most important elements inside of Windows XP or some of your libraries and stuff. But the truth is if you want something that if you have an oops or if you install a bad piece of software, you're better off running something like Go Back to recover your system. The system recovery, it sounds great. It's got system recovery. It's like having more oomph, as Megan used to say. But what it does is basically salvage some obscure parts of Windows that may allow you to reuse your system or restart a crashed system. But it's a little scary and a little frustrating of a process to use.
I mean, he won't have the group policy editor with Home, but it doesn't sound like he's really interested.
Yeah, do you have any group policy? It sounds like an insurance tool.
No, it's a really cool editing tool. It's, stuff that the registry does, too. Anyway.
So
if you don't know it, you might not want it.
Yeah, in terms of that, I'd say you're fine with Windows XP Home. Keep backing up your data on CDs. And if you're really worried about the system crashing, I'd say find a copy of Go Back to install on that system. It does a really nice job of doing incremental backups on your system. So if your system crashes, you can use it. But it's no substitute for backing up your data and storing it in a separate place.
Cool.
Good call.
Are we going to boot after the break?
We're going to boot after the break. Right now, though, Foos got a helpful tip.
Thank you, Mr. Norton. Now, there's 2 ways to optimize your Internet Explorer experience. 1 is to listen to my tips. 2 is to listen to what Internet Explorer has for some tips. Now, this is what you do. It's simple. All you need to do is click on Help, go down to Tip of the Day, click on that, look at the bottom. It says, Did you know? You can save a web page for offline reading by clicking File and Save As. Very, very simple. And you can click Next Tip. Got tons of tips every single day, just for you. Stay where you are. We're going to check our inbox, see what's on your mind when the Screensavers continues.
For some boot action.
Yes, we actually have it booting. You know what? Somebody stole our Windows XP disks, all 4 of them off the set again.
That is so rude.
This is what happens when you renovate the set and don't lock it. But we do actually have Knoppix booting up in there.
Yay!
So we got Knoppix main booting up in there. The system's running. $450.
$500.
You know, I bet if we ask Brentano really nicely, he'll let us put us in the put the $500 gaming PC in the LAN party next week.
I can't compete with any of these.
Oh.
Are you dissing the Norton 500?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, he is. Because you know what? You've spent more on your gaming PC than your car in the last 2 years of your life.
That's true.
The man has his priorities set, and he follows them, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you with mortgages, check out this system and get all. I'd be shocked. I bet we can find somebody who can just whomp you on one of those systems using this system.
Yeah, Brentano.
Probably any 13-year-old out there in TV land seems to be able to kick our butts in the LAN party. It's not any fun anymore.
Brentano hates it when he doesn't win. Which brings us to emails.
It does?
I don't know how.
Okay, let's just make that transition. This is great. This one comes from Joey. I won't read your last name, Joey. My neighbor and I went dumpster diving. We got an assortment of stuff, from power cables to high-quality video cables and a sound card. But the best find was a full-size broken pinball machine they were throwing away. And after only a few minutes of fooling around with the switches behind the coin slots, we got it working.
Ladies and gentlemen,
dumpster diving worked for Joey.
Just like it worked for Kevin and Kevin Mitnick. Yeah, take the stuff, leave the tools for exploring networks behind.
Right. If it's in the dumpster, I guess they don't want it anymore. Moving on, from Brian in Green Bay. I want to fill my PC case with smoke. I was wondering if the fog from a fog machine would damage any of the components.
It probably would be very bad. There's actually there's a lot of opera singers.
Being good.
Yeah, well, some of them are based on like corn oil and stuff, and they're relatively benign. But generally speaking, anything that puts little tiny particles of dust covered with oil inside your machine, full of sensitive parts and motors, is a bad idea.
Right.
Maybe if you put a smoke machine inside your machine to blow smoke out, that way it would just be damaging your lungs rather than your machine. It would be a better idea.
He says, there's an addendum. Would I have the same problem if I used a hazer?
A hazer?
Fog machines use water-based fluid. Hazers use CO2.
Good to know.
Brian, what is going on?
You need time to go out and turn off the television, Brian, and go outside and look at the big yellow object in the blue sky.
Stop listening to Kevin, Brian.
Yes.
Moving on. This one is from Tom in San Antonio. I've got an old Pentium 100 Sony Vaio laptop. I'd like to install SmoothWall on it to act as a physical firewall.
We like that.
Yeah, I thought this would be a neat way to avoid another monitor. Can this be done? It has a CD drive, 2 card slots, and no floppy.
Well, here's the only thing you're going to need both of those card slots. You're going to need some kind of Ethernet cards that allow you to take advantage of both card slots. So they got to both fit in both card slots at the same time. But yeah, it's a great system to use for that. You basically can set it up, use the monitor on the notebook, put the lid down, and just leave it as a firewall forever and ever.
Done and done. We like firewalls.
That's it for this edition of the Screensavers. I'm Patrick Norton.
And I'm Sarah Lane. Thanks for joining us. We'd like to thank our guest, Michio Kaku. See you next time. Have a great night. See you Monday. We're in D.C.